The real reason for these WWE and AEW matches has been revealed, and a top AEW star has given their thoughts on a potential match with CM Punk. But first, let's go to some key stories from last night's episode of Monday Night Raw, where the tournament for the brand new WWE World Heavyweight Championship would begin. This past weekend, 6 Raw and 6 SmackDown superstars were announced as part of the bracket, with the winner of each brand facing off at Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia on May 27th. The first match of the tournament would see Seth Rollins defeat Damian Priest and Shinsuke Nakamura in a triple threat match, with him moving on to the semi-finals, whilst Finn Balor advanced over Cody Rhodes and The Miz. This after the American Nightmare was wiped out by his Backlash opponent, Brock Lesnar, with the Beast later issuing a challenge for the upcoming Night of Champions event, a challenge that was accepted. Finn Balor and Seth Rollins would later go one-on-one in the main event of the show, with Rollins coming out on top as he moves on to Night of Champions to face the winner of this Friday's bracket on SmackDown, which includes AJ Styles, Edge, Rey Mysterio, United States Champion Austin Theory, Bobby Lashley, and Sheamus. During the opening promo of Monday Night Raw, the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes would make yet another reference to his time in All Elite Wrestling. Last night's episode would go down in Jacksonville, Florida, the home base of AEW and the location of Daily's Place, which held the majority of the company's shows throughout the pandemic era. Cody would give a not-so-subtle nod to this time and said, "Many of you know this was my home during the pandemic. We made a lot of good memories together." The line was one of many AEW-themed references by Rhodes and his opponents since he returned to WWE in April 2022, with WWE not afraid to indirectly mention the competition, perhaps as a flex that they managed to acquire one of the company's EVPs. And speaking of Cody Rhodes, another name tipped to rejoin WWE after a stint outside of the company is former Intercontinental Champion Matt Cardona, who was previously known as Zack Ryder. Cardona would speak with the Heated Shenanigans podcast this week, where he would open up about his desire to work a program with one of his real-life best friends, Cody Rhodes, feeling the story writes itself. And when discussing a potential return to WWE, Matt would say, "Ever since I was released from WWE, my goal was never to get back there. It wasn't like, oh, what can I do to get WWE to notice me? I'd be lying if I said I never wanted to have a WrestleMania moment again or wrestle in Madison Square Garden. Those are all things that come with being in WWE. I don't know off the top of my head what my first program would be back, but there's a lot of guys that I'd like to get in the ring with. Cody Rhodes is one of them. There's a story that is more than just a wrestling story, a true real-life story, and I think that's what makes wrestling the most special, is when there's that element of realism behind it, like, is this real? Is this not?" Next up, one of the upcoming challengers for the AEW World Championship at Double or Nothing, Darby Allin, would speak with TMZ Sports this week ahead of the big main event title match on May 28th. Darby, who is known to attempt outlandish stunts outside of wrestling, would reveal that next year he's in for his biggest challenge of his life thus far, with him set to climb the largest mountain in the world. And Darby would say, "The thing I'm going to be doing next year that no wrestler's done before is climb Mount Everest. You heard it here first. AEW gives me something that no other company can give me, and that's the freedom to go crazy outside the ring, do my stuff. I'm telling you right now, no other company would let me skate with Tony Hawk or go crazy at Nitro Circus with Travis Pastrana or stuff like that." Of course, climbing Mount Everest is an enormous task, with Explorer's Passage recommending that you put 3 months of your life aside in order to complete it. One question that the news leaves us with is if Darby will be taking the AEW World title belt with him, with the 4 Pillars match taking place in just under 3 weeks' time. Impact Wrestling have revealed that Trinity is set to compete at the upcoming Impact Under Siege event, which will take place on May 26 at the Western Fair District Agriplex, located in London, Ontario, Canada. The former Naomi in WWE made her debut with Impact on the May 4th episode of the show, where the former WWE SmackDown Women's Champion quickly set her sights on the Impact Knockouts World Champion Deonna Purrazzo before they were interrupted by #1 contender Jordynne Grace, who fights for the title at the pay-per-view. It's unclear at this time who Trinity will face at Impact Under Siege, although she is seemingly set for a Knockouts title shot once the show has been and gone. Former ROH World Champion Nigel McGuinness was recently announced as the newest addition of the All Elite Wrestling broadcast team, with him currently being assigned to Ring of Honor. With the company set to head to Wembley Stadium on August 27th in London, England, Nigel's hometown, fans have wondered if he could be set to make his long-awaited return to the ring, something he appeared to be open to if the opponent is right. Well, in an update to the situation, McGuinness has now filed to trademark his ring name with the United States Patent and Trademark Office for use in wrestling contests, a sign that he may well be set to come out of retirement. The Brit was forced to retire in 2011 following an injury to his spine, this after making a name for himself due to his technical wrestling ability in both Ring of Honor and TNA Wrestling. The former Pure Champion recently stated that he'd love to reignite his feud with ROH rival Bryan Danielson at Wembley Stadium, a match that we may be one step closer to seeing. WWE Hall of Famer Ricky Steamboat would make his AEW debut on August 17th, 2022, with him appearing as a guest timekeeper on the House of Dragons special edition of Dynamite. During a virtual signing for Captain's Corner this week, the Dragon would be asked if he would consider joining All Elite Wrestling on a full-time basis, something he revealed as an opportunity he's turned down in the past, and Ricky would respectfully reveal, "Believe this or not, I was already asked to come on board with AEW in the capacity of a road agent. No reflection on them, great company and everything, and don't get me wrong, the pay was going to be great, but I'm at the point in my life where I'm trying to get off the road." The offer isn't much of a surprise to longtime wrestling fans that have followed the career of Steamboat over the decades, with him often being described as the inspiration for many wrestlers to step into the industry, including fellow Hall of Famer Mick Foley. AEW President Tony Khan himself has described Ricky Steamboat as one of his all-time favorites. This week, WWE and AEW television is stacked with strong matches across the board, with WWE kicking off the tournament for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship on Raw and SmackDown, whilst NXT begins the tournament for the vacant Women's Championship tonight. On the AEW side of things, Wednesday's episode of Dynamite will be headlined by a cage match between the Elite's Kenny Omega and the Blackpool Combat Club's Jon Moxley. And according to Dave Meltzer on the Wrestling Observer website, the shows are designed to combat heavy competition from other sports leagues, with him writing, "The reason for the tournament on Raw and SmackDown is to combat the hit the shows would normally take in the ratings this week due to the NBA and NHL playoffs, especially since Warriors vs Lakers is doing record viewership for this early in the playoffs. For tomorrow, the Knicks vs Heat to go against the first 2 hours and Warrior Lakers against the third hour. For Tuesday, NXT goes against 76ers vs Celtics. For Wednesday, AEW goes against Heat Knicks most of the game, and then the West Coast replay goes against Lakers Warriors, and that will hurt it badly on the West Coast. Obviously, AEW is trying to combat that with a loaded show headlined by Kenny Omega versus Jon Moxley in a cage match. All Elite Wrestling are reportedly set to introduce a soft roster split across AEW Dynamite and their new Saturday show, AEW Collision, with this said to be to appease certain sections of the locker room that don't want to work with CM Punk following the incidents of All Out 2022. Well, it appears that one of the talents that don't want to be around the straight edge superstar has seemingly been revealed, as when appearing at the For the Love of Wrestling convention last week in Manchester, England, Jungle Boy Jack Perry would be asked if he was interested in working a match with CM Punk, with him seemingly less than keen on the idea, and here's the clip from the show.
My question's for Jungle Boy. I'd just like to know, would you like to have a program with CM Punk?
The boy versus the punk.
It's just between us, it's cool.
Oh, thanks. We'd have to see. I don't know.
What on earth is going on with these questions?
Manchester is full of controversy.
A lot of cross-examination.
We're kind of here for it.
As well as these comments, there has been a number of fan reports revealing that Jungle Boy wasn't in the best moods during his time at the convention, with James Romero of Wrestling Shoot Interviews noting that fans were, quote, avoiding his table like a plague, although he of course may have just been having an off day. In response to this claim, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful added that he's only ever had positive experiences with Jack. As for the CM Punk comments, much like the Young Bucks, Jungle Boy rose up through the West Coast independent scene and is seemingly close with that side of the locker room, room, with his reaction to the question seemingly confirming his allegiance to the Elite and Friends.